Hi there, everyone. My name is Christian Eschbach, and welcome to another one of my album reviews. Today, we are talking about Bif Naked's original album. Still got the used sticker on it. Picked this one up used sometime after I did the greatest hits review. So, there are a couple songs on here I've covered before. Now, this album was originally released in 1994. This version is from the 1996 re release because it was released independently on Biff's own label, Concrete, I believe it is, and then it was picked up by Aquarius for actual distribution. This one here actually says Warner Music Canada, so I'm sure it was even in after that one. Bif Naked, overlooked, highly overlooked Canadian musician. She's one of those ones where she's definitely the lyricist. I don't know how much she has to do with the actual music writing itself when it comes to it. There is no definitive separation. Biff is. I want to say Biff was the Canadian answer to Hole. Hole being Courtney Love's group, for those that don't know. Except for Biff was better. Now, if I had been exposed to this album half as much as I had been exposed to Live Through This, I probably would have gotten into Biff a lot more than I did. So let's get into this. Album opens up with Everything. Everything is a good track, opens up the album, has great energy to it, really gets you going. I believe I've covered this on the greatest hits album I covered, Essentially Naked. But overall, it's a good tune. It's really enjoyable. It's got a great high pace kind of energy to it. Then it goes into Make Like a Tree. Make Like a Tree definitely really is the first time that I'm really going, wow, this is very Hole like, but not necessarily the type of Hole I want to listen to. I'm not a fan of Make Like a Tree. I'm really not. It's not a bad song. It's just not a song that works for me. And in the great scheme, it's not a song that's ever going to stand out. After that, we get into Daddy's Getting Married. I've definitely talked about this one before. I do like this song in certain ways, dislike in other ways. I could do without the little brattiness of, oh, Daddy's getting married, I'm going to start a fight and, blah, 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 blah. I could deal without that, but at the same time, it's that whole emotional expression kind of thing. The one complaint I've always had about Biff is her playing up that little girly kind of mentality sometimes. And I don't mean, I'm talking actual childish mentality, little childish, spoiled little girl mentality. And not something that really works for me, like when it's definitely daddy issues, like a song totally clearly daddy issues, kind of a bit of a turn off. And because it's not the good type of daddy issues either. Sorry, I had to have a pig moment there. All right. From there we go on Tell on You. In brackets, when I look at online, it's Letter to My Rapist. It doesn't say that on the back here. And maybe it should. Maybe it really should. Good song, not a bad song, not a song that overly connects with me. But it's one of those songs that is good on when you're listening to the album. Never Alone, same thing, kind of. Goodwill is on the album. From there, we go into Over You. At this point, you can definitely tell there's this whole kind of grunge inspiration kind of thing going on in here. Like, it's very, very grungy inspired, musically and whatnot. The singing, the vocals, very raspy, very raw, very Courtney Love-esque. And once again, if I had been exposed to it back in the day, I probably would have enjoyed it more. Much like I enjoyed Hole a lot more back when I was younger than I do now. I still don't mind. I still like Live Through This. I still put it on from time to time. But there's certain things on that album that spark that are a little different from this one. This one's got a kind of overall vibe. And then when it does change, on the next song, it finally changes. You get something that's really kind of a little bit different. And it's Succulent. And the problem is, I'm not into hip hop, rap, the vinyl mixing, kind of scratching stuff, whatnot. And not to say that's entirely what's going on. There's definitely got some DJ club mix stuff going on. And as I'm not a fan of it, it doesn't do a whole lot for me. But it is an interesting song, and I don't mind it. Lyrically, it's kind of interesting. Bif definitely has a way with words. You can definitely tell she chooses her words in a poetic manner. She doesn't choose her words necessarily for lyrical flow, even though it does work, but it's just kind of her style. My Whole Life is the next track up after Succulent. We're back into the regular album format of that kind of grungy-esque vibe. And I know I've covered My Whole Life as well. I covered it on the Greatest Hits package. Here, I really dig it. It doesn't have that. It's one of those songs. It's a really good song. It's mellow. It's pretty, but it's got a nice vibe to it. Instrumentally, it's interesting. After that, you get to The Letter, which is alright. After that, you got My Bike, and My Bike is one of those weird songs. It's one of those songs where I don't know why it's called My Bike, or I really hear the lyrics completely wrong on it. And if it wasn't for the fact that the lyrics are written in, these tiny little, Biff scrawl, and I'm getting old and I don't want to try and focus on it that old. I would take the time. My Bike's actually a really cool song, and I really dig it when I'm listening to it every time I listen to it, because it's on the Greatest Hits album as well. The problem is, because of the title of the song and what I hear lyrically while I'm listening to it, I often kind of overlook the song. And I will be completely honest, that song is where this album should have ended, because the next track after that is one of Bif Naked's spoken word pieces. And Bif does a lot of spoken word on her albums. Even her Greatest Hits album had a few of her spoken word pieces on it. This was not one of them. This one was called The Gross Gross Man. And The Gross Gross Man is basically... Alright, I used to host open mic poetry, and I used to even compete in poetry slams. And The Gross Gross Man, to me, makes me think of a poetry slam almost, where it's basically a woman having a freak out because a guy is checking her out, and it goes into what I would call a feminist rant. Now, it's not a crazy bad feminist rant like I'm talking about these days. This is going back to the time period where, 94 was kind of weird. You had a weird sexual revolution going on where everybody wanted to be sexualized but didn't want to be sexualized. That still goes on now, but it's changed a little bit. The sexualization has dropped down a little bit. In the 90s, sexualization was really kind of spinning up and getting a little crazy. And Biff would have been on the side of, she never dressed in a manner that was sexual. And, in any picture I've ever seen of Biff, later on she dresses sexually. She's dressed showing off her body. Not even that she's trying to be sexually explicit or anything like that. Biff has always been a muscular, tomboy-esque styled female. Androgynous, I want to say, kind of. Sporty spice with a bunch of tattoos. I'm sure I'm going to offend people with that one a little bit. I don't know which group. If you are into grunge, if you are into female vocalists, especially if you're into that time period, you gotta check out this album. It's worth checking out. Now, I'm a dude, so a lot of it doesn't appeal to me lyrically with the content because I don't have, a lot of the connection that women would have. Women would definitely have much more of a connection with this album than I'm going to have. Completely. However, musically, it is a fantastic album. It's a great album. I personally enjoy it. I do enjoy Bif Naked, and I have for the most part, most of the time that I've listened to her. Is this an album I will listen to regularly? No. I personally wouldn't listen to it regularly. But if my daughter, like if I had owned this when my daughter was younger, I would have had this on in the house more often just for her sake. And yeah, that's that. All right, folks, tell me what you think. Leave me a comment in the comment section. That's where your opinions go. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. There's a link to Patreon below. Peace, love, take care.